Looks like you need a vacation. Enter the 5-Hour Energy Where Will the Tide Take You sweepstakes. You could win a $10,000 dream beach vacation. Imagine jet setting off to a tropical paradise, having fun in the sun, or diving at a gorgeous reef. It's up to you. No purchase necessary. Go to 5HETide.com for official rules and to enter. That's 5HETide.com. Enter today. Ends June 30th, 2024.
What's the easiest choice you can make? Window instead of middle seat? Picking a vendor who sends a great gift basket? Outsourcing business tasks you hate? What about selling with Shopify? Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage. Shopify's there to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/try. Go to shopify.com/try now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/try.
Welcome to Comedy Album Book Club, Volume 3. I'm your host, Jason DeLine. We here at the Social Capital Theater have just listened to, here's the full album title, The Songs and Comedy of the Smothers Brothers, recorded at the Purple Onion, San Francisco. Or was it? I suggest you listen to it as well before going any further listening at home. Okay, so I have 3 guests today, as always. My first guest is Mr. Nug Nargang.
Hello.
Welcome, Nug.
Thank you.
A local Toronto actor, and he is also a famed, is that a good word?
I guess.
Famed improviser. Sure. And he has a podcast as well, which is sort of a sci-fi radio play comedy podcast. It's bi-weekly, and it's completely improvised.
Yeah, we make up the whole thing, and we get a title either from an old Twilight Zone episode that no one knows what those titles are from those episodes anyway. Like sometimes it's like The Eye of the Beholder. Oh, cool. And it doesn't really tell you
the man who didn't know his name.
Exactly.
That could be one.
Much. It's just called Too Much.
Right.
Or we get a fan to send us a title, and when we do live shows, we source a title from the audience, and then we just kind of improvise a Twilight Zone episode, so it can be pretty much any genre, but always things don't turn out well.
It's very cool and very fun. I was at the show that Billy West was on.
That was a blast.
It was a blast. And it was neat because I think we talked about it afterwards, and I think you described it as sort of like doing improv with your dad.
Yeah, Billy West has a back pocket go-to of about 15 different impressions, and he's just going to do them. Yeah. So you kind of just
dirty
go,
jokes.
We're at the space bank, and it's time for a robbery. Well, here comes Frank Sinatra. Like, cool, Uncle Billy's doing his Frank Sinatra impression. It was really fun.
It was
just like
so fun.
Talk about improvising. We were just like, oh, now this.
Yeah.
So it was just like one extra thing piled on.
And the nicest guy.
Just
in
an
the
absolute
world.
sweetheart.
Time for everybody. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
We also have Sherilyn Johnson,
Hello.
comedy journalist, has written for Vanity Fair and the AV Club, as well as a book called Bears and Balls, The Colbert Report, A to Z. I assume he's A to Z because it's for Americans.
Yeah, about half the radio interviews I did was, is it Z or Z?
Oh, I'm so sorry to
my
bring that up.
answer, no, it's not. My answer was that my co-author was American, so
Okay.
it's both.
Whatever sells
you
books,
want.
pal.
Yeah, whatever.
It
Yeah.
doesn't change the alphabetizing of the book.
It doesn't, no.
So who
Fair
cares?
enough.
No.
Is that also available in digital format?
Yes, you can get it digital format, and you can get it paperback. Amazon chapters. You can order it to your favorite indie bookstore.
Right on. And this came
all
out
that
of
stuff.
being a super fan of what exactly? The Daily Show or Colbert or what was it?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you want to go way back, Chain Reaction started with the Jon Stewart Show in 94, 95.
Oh, wow.
I was a mega fan of that. If you find clips on YouTube, chances are they were from my VHS tapes that have circulated and that I still have. They're deteriorating. And then Daily Show, and then when the Colbert Report started, super impressed, and had seen Colbert there with a bunch of Daily Show writers and producers in Montreal at a Just for Laughs event before he started that show, and was super impressed and continue to be impressed to this day.
That's awesome. So is there a reason you didn't do a Daily Show book? It sounds like you fell more in love with Colbert after Stewart? Or?
Yeah, I mean, it was just a kind of an opportunity thing.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot more to talk about, I think, with Colbert, and it was sort of a very impulsive decision when he announced that he was ending the Colbert Report. It was April that he announced it, and they were ending it in December. And within a couple of weeks, I started thinking, well, someone should write a book about this show. And that someone should probably be me. And if I'm ever going to do it, it's only going to sell now.
Right.
So, people usually have a year and a half to put something like that together. And my co-author and I did it in 8 months by ourselves while I was working full time and remounting my solo show at Winnipeg Fringe. And she was working in England and working on graduating from college at the same time.
Wow.
We almost died, basically.
Fantastic. I hope it leads to you being on the Late Show at some point.
Well, technically, if you watch the premiere episode of the Late Show, the musical, there was a big musical number at the end with like Mavis Staples and Ben Folds and all these people, and they did Everyday People, and one of the photos that shows up behind them is me.
What?
Nice.
So technically,
That's so cool.
I've been on the Late Show, and also I've been in a bunch of audience shots, but I don't really count that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so
that's
technically,
really cool.
I don't know if
There's
I
a
can
little homage to you there.
Yeah, I don't know if I
That's
can.
really nice.
Well, they didn't. It was a random. Anyway,
You're not the only one in the photo?
I'm not the only. Yeah.
It's not a big headshot.
It's just you for the entire
This was all
time.
dedicated to Sherilyn Johnson. We wouldn't be here.
If only.
That's great. No, that's super cool. Also, on the end of the row here, we have Adam McNamara.
Hello. Hi.
Toronto comedian and co-host and co-creator of the video game series, web series Games on the Rocks.
That is correct.
Which
yes.
is a really fun show. Tell us quickly what the premise is. I love this idea.
It's quite simple. We get drunk and we play video games and we try to beat the games. And
What's your hit rate so far? What's the percentage of games beaten drunk? Any idea?
1%.
1%.
We beat one, and it was called Pooyan.
I know Pooh Yan. When
yeah.
you're in a basket and you're a pig. And
Yeah.
you're shooting arrows at wolves
You're a
and
mama.
balloons.
You're a mama pig,
Yeah.
and you got to save your kid Pooyan from wolves. So I was able.
I loved that game.
I was able to beat Pooyan,
All
which
right.
it's fun because we don't really remember what happened. So when we're reviewing the footage, we're like, "Oh, we beat Pooyan." And it's like, "Oh, wow, okay."
What?
So yeah, so there's.
I really find the show funny where there's stuff that happens in the show sometimes where you'll see something like when in one of the Donkey Kong games you came across the golden boombox.
Yeah.
And you just stop and you're like, why is it gold?
Yeah, 'cause
Why is
that's
it gold?
a glitch.
And then you said, well, write out in the comments if you could figure it out. And it's so funny because it feels like you treat this like it's a live show that can't be edited. Where I would just literally Google it for 5 minutes.
Well, we're too
and then
drunk
go,
to-
okay, we figured it out, and then just cut that out. But you're like, there's no way to know.
No, I don't know. Well, like we looked it up afterwards because I don't know, like you're into the game and like we've had like 6 beers and then the monkey all of a sudden has like a golden boombox and we just lost it. We're like we didn't know. It was
I don't think it was 6 beers. I think it was a little stronger than that.
No, we were having because we have special mixed drinks that we make for each episode. So we had a Drunky Kong, which was a banana liqueur with a coconut liqueur
good night.
and A&W root beer.
No.
And mix it together.
Oh, mother's
Yeah.
milk. That
No,
sounds
it's-
fantastic.
Yeah, it's so good.
I'm going to write that down for some friends.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay,
It's
fair
good.
point. You probably wouldn't be able to use your phones or.
No, yeah. It's,
Did you ever find out why the boombox was gold?
It's a glitch, apparently.
It's a glitch that can it just happen out of nowhere?
I don't know. Like, we looked it up and like it's just people. The only thing we could find were just clips of like golden glitch, and we're like, ooh.
All right.
And we looked it up and it was
It's
just the
legendary
same thing. So it didn't
All
really
right.
say how we did it, but we did
Cool.
it.
So what's next? Do we have looked forward to on that show? What's the next
We
game?
just released our Halloween special where
Cool.
we play Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2 for
right
NES.
on. Right
So
on.
that was pretty painful to get through. But Yeah, so check it out.
All
Check it
right,
out, see what
cool.
happens.
Games on the Rocks. Okay, so guys, we just listened to this album together. What a beautiful bonding experience. And so, Nug,
Yes.
you wanted to do the Smothers Brothers, and this is their first album. So
when I was a small child, when I was younger, we lived on a farm, and we had 3 channels that you had to, on your television that you had to get by an aerial. I'm speaking slowly for the city kids. And you had to have your aerial, your giant aerial, and you had a big box with a dial, and we had it marked where the 3 channels were.
Right.
But on some days, if the weather was bad, you got no channels. And my father, who was a child of the 60s, has a massive comedy album collection. So he has all the Smothers Brothers, a bunch of Cosby, a bunch of Pryor, a Jonathan Winters album, and Carlin and this. And so we listened to the Smothers Brothers. And it hit home for me because I have a brother, and we're the only 2 in our family. And he's we were kind of like Tom and Dick. I was the slow one, and he was the superior one, but I'm the older one. Right. So we still to this day take turns treating each other like the dumb one, or calling the other one and speaking like the dumb one, and the other one has to go, "Ugh, no, that's not right." Just doing bits with each other. But we have listened to this album so much, and so I know it's their first album, and the Smothers Brothers, I think, are even though they had their 50th anniversary of their variety show recently, I feel like they're a very overlooked comedy act.
Yeah.
But the people they had writing for them on their variety show were like Steve Martin was on there, and
Rob Reiner.
Like so many amazing people have worked with them because of the start they had with this album.
Right.
And then we were saying, it's live at the Purple Onion, literally only the intro, just the intros from the Purple
The
Onion.
rest was in Texas?
Yeah, somewhere else, because the tape from the Purple Onion was garbage. So they just did a whole other show somewhere else.
But they did it in Texas. But 2 years ago, their very first performance ever was at the Purple Onion.
Yeah.
And so as a thank you sort of for giving them their start, they gave them the credit. So I don't know if Houston's still angry about that.
I
Maybe.
doubt it. Zach
not.
Galifianakis also did a special at the Purple Onion.
That's true,
Which when I saw that, I was like, that's where the Smothers Brothers did it. Like I totally knew where the Purple Onion was.
And that's in San Francisco. It's a far cry from Houston, Texas.
And it's not a comedy bar. Like it's
really?
not a comedy place at all. It's more like a jazz bar. Now, anyway. But back then, it was you'd go with your wife and have a smart cocktail and watch some entertainment. And it turned out the Smothers Brothers were being funny while they were entertaining.
That's the thing. I feel like this is an interesting album to try to sell people. If you like silly people who play excellent folk music, you'll like this album. I mean,
that niche market.
Very niche, you'd think.
But they blew up because in the time, like they do at the end of the album, they do Tom Dooley, the Kingston Trio.
Yeah.
And the Kingston Trio were huge. Folk music was gigantic. And here were 2 safe, well-dressed, white, good boys doing folk tunes, which everybody loved, in suits and a stand-up bass and everything. And they were completely accomplished musicians. And then their banter between songs was hysterical.
Yeah.
And that's what made them big. They were doing something other people were doing, but being funny with it.
And Dick is so amazing at staying straight the whole time, and Tom's straight most of the time too. But he to me, when I was listening to it, I was thinking he's like a 6-year-old who's trying really hard.
Yeah,
it's
but once in a while,
little impish kind of.
Yeah, once in a while he can't help but make a joke or go. but a lot of the stuff is just him trying really hard, and this is the information that I believe to be true. And as you were saying,
it's like he's
so much misinformation.
He's trying to do the job that he's been told to do. Like you have to introduce the song. And he has none of the information at hand. But I still have to barrel forward and introduce this song, so he gets a lot of things wrong, screws up his words, and then there's Dickie going, here's the right word, off the side, and then he still he will never admit he's wrong. Yeah. He'll barrel forward incorrectly when they say that song this is an Israeli song. It's from Holland. It's from in Holland, but the Israeli part. Like, he never lets it go.
But Dick is so gentle with him on this album. I feel like later on
they just roast each other.
Yeah, it gets a little more heated between them, right?
Yeah.
And that's when the Mom Always Liked You Best stuff starts to come in, and that's sort of the classic era. This feels very early. There are points where it was hard for me to tell who was who when they were singing or talking. They've got a very similar style, but yeah, Tom is definitely the very, very earnest, but. You can't quite tell from listening to the album, but when you see him in TV, sometimes there's like a twinkle in his eye when he's making these lies up. And
I think you can hear the twinkle a lot.
Yeah, I wonder if everyone realizes. Like sometimes it's like, oh, is he just is he just not sure, or is he purposely telling lies to mess with the audience?
Yeah.
And I think they really leaned into that later, where he's just enjoying telling lies, and Dick lets him away with it a lot less later on.
There's a bit after all the years they were banned from CBS, Letterman had them on.
Right.
When the ban was lifted or whatever, Letterman had them on, and they did this bit, and it was a Spanish song. And so it's one of my favorite bits because they're still doing the same beside each other stand-up bass guitar. And Tom is trying to speak Spanglish. He's basically speaking Spanglish.
Right.
And he's saying words, and Dickie keeps calling him on it. You have no idea what these words mean.
Yeah.
You have no idea what you're saying. You're lying to the people. You don't know what these words mean. And Tom says, El Toro Crapo. and then Dickie goes, what? And he says, El Toro Crapo. And Dickie says, you don't even know what that means. And Tom says, bullshit. And they bleep it. So the live, and Letterman collapses. And the live audience goes bananas.
Awesome.
But they bleeped it for the air, which is the best part of that. It's the
Yeah.
first time they're back on CBS after a ban, and he swears. It's just the way they are, man. It's so much fun.
And it's rehearsed impossibly well that it seems so off the cuff.
Yeah.
Like, these jokes are so good you could not improvise them. That you could not just wing it.
It's tons of practice.
Yeah.
To the point
It's-
of it looks made up. Like,
yeah,
it looks
Yeah.
it's
spontaneous.
absolutely incredible.
It's such a perfectly casual delivery that it just
You believe it
off
all.
the cuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like individually, you'd feel that like you would believe the lie that he's telling, but because there's that duo aspect, it's just like no. And then that's where like I found like the funny comes from. Because if you just listen to him, be like, oh yeah, like this is a song, really popular Israeli song. Da, 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 da. If it was just him, you'd be like, oh, I didn't know that. But
And
then,
also at that point, he's built up enough wrongness
Yeah,
that the
yeah,
audience is on
yeah.
board with this guy's bullshitting me right now.
yeah, there's a trust that
Yeah.
he builds, and then it's like it's broken. It's like nope.
Yeah, Dick calls him on it, and then he starts backpedaling. Well,
Yeah, like, oh no, but it was this. It was like, no.
there was I watched a clip today when they were on 2011. They were on Craig Ferguson, and they were just talking about how they flew here and how Tommy's a pilot. And Dick just says, "That's not true." He's like, "Well, let me finish the thought." And he just keeps telling all these lies about being a pilot and fly. They just keep saying, "That's not true. Some of it's true. Just let me finish the thought." He just keeps saying, a lot of it's true, but he just kept going. And then at the end, they just have this conversation about why would you put so much effort into making up that lie? And he says, "It didn't take much effort."
And
He doesn't defend the lies.
That's the brothers part of it too. Like billing yourself as like you are brothers, but billing yourself as brothers, and then having this stage presence of correcting the dumb one or being superior, or and being the one that can very gently or very strongly tell your brother he's an idiot.
Yeah.
It's inherent that it's okay to do that because he's your brother. So like the audience goes, they're brothers.
But I also like that Tom will come back at him in a way that Dick wouldn't, because Dick doesn't want to be unprofessional.
Yes.
But Tom's willing to do that little dig and be the imp, like you said, and Dick can't do anything because he won't sink to that level, so to speak. It's a pretty neat dynamic. Sherilyn, have you been a fan for a long time, or you said you listened to the album recently?
Yeah, I listened to the album recently. I had kind of, I guess, the opposite experience that Nug did, in that when I was young and very small, I only knew these guys as the two guys from the shredded wheat commercials.
Right.
Ah, yes.
Definitely no broccoli, right?
Yeah,
that was the thing.
oh my God.
No broccoli.
Yeah,
Some
there's a
people
couple
like
different ones. At least one of them's on YouTube. But when I was young, if you're around my age, approaching 40, that would be your first exposure as a Canadian anyway. I don't think they ran in the U.S., but. So I, for the longest time, I was like, oh, that, they're fun two guys, but I kind of then was like, oh, they do the, whatever. They exist beyond this commercial.
And kind of old to be just cereal spokesman. Really.
But right in the wheelhouse of shredded wheat.
But yeah, I mean, their banter was, appropriate for a commercial that aired, on primetime television, kind of a thing. It was cute. And then it wasn't until I was I want to say 14, maybe, getting into like hardcore comedy nerddom that I, was starting to read about Lorne Michaels, I guess, worked on on their show and then found out that they were badasses. I'm like, what? The Shredded Wheat guys are awesome.
Secret badass.
What happened? So yeah, it was I kind of backed into my knowledge of who they were and what they were about and what they had done.
I think it was the same thing with me. Yeah, I saw them on the Shredded Wheat commercials, and my grandfather would say, "Oh, it's the Smothers Brothers. How do you know their names? These two guys on this thing." And then, we would rent VHSs, my dad and my grandpa and stuff, and watch those old things. And yeah, I've been a lifelong Steve Martin fan, and just recently I've seen he was a writer on the show, as we all know, and then they gave him like a break to do a stand-up bit on the show, and that's the only time I think I've ever seen footage of him with brown hair.
Yep, because he went gray at 13.
Something like that. Yeah.
I think in this episode he was actually 22 on the Smothers. Yeah,
Doing,
that's crazy.
Writing on the Smothers Brothers and performing at 22.
You would think that's where you'd top out, right?
Yeah. God.
And then Steve Martin became arguably the biggest stand-up comedian of all time for the next little while. What about you, Adam? What was your introduction to the Smothers Brothers?
You know what? Again, it was when I was really little, and I remember being up at my cottage, and we had one of those dial things too.
Yeah,
I remember that.
aerial.
Because they made this like I always liked the sound it made. It was like
It sounded like a can opener.
yeah,
Sounded like-
and I would like always like twist it, and my dad would be like, "Stop it!" Like you're gonna like break it, but like and I just like that sound. And
Ours looked like a UFO on top of the roof too. It was this disc thing.
ours was like
Just Mars was a straight line with a bunch of wires.
yeah, that was
yeah.
I like how
That's
this
the
has turned
classic.
into like this
Guys,
an aerial.
That's what television used to be.
Welcome to Tech Talk.
But yeah, so I'm playing with that, and then like the Smothers Brothers came on, and I remember thinking they were funny, and I liked the music, and I really loved the banter. But when I think back as a child watching them, I remember they had a guest on who was really good at yo-yos.
It was Tom.
It was Tom.
Was he a regular?
He was the yo-yo man.
No, Tom, the brother.
The brother.
The brother.
Tom
Tom
Smothers.
Smothers was the yo-yo man.
That was the same guy.
Same guy.
Really?
Yep.
Mind blown.
Are you
Plot
kidding
twist.
me?
No.
Because it was like
And Dick was the voice of Yo. He did like a
the
voiceover.
man from Yo.
Yeah.
They were the same guy.
Same guy.
Because I thought it was like.
How many banana coconuts?
When I was like 6,
I wish
that was
your
reckless.
listeners could
Yeah.
see
Oh my
Adam's
God.
face. It's
Yeah,
absolutely
they were
amazing.
Yeah, Tom is actually a legit yo-yo wizard.
He's an amazing yo-yo.
Because I watched it and I'm like, where'd the Smothers Brothers go? And then the man from Yo came out, and then I like went to my dad. I was like, we gotta get yo-yos.
Oh, yeah.
And
Absolutely.
my brother and I got yo-yos, but we were bad. And it just kind of turned into us just like whacking each other with yo-yos. But like, I had no clue.
Yeah.
He is a genius with a yo-yo.
Yes, he is.
Very
That's
strange.
wow.
Yeah, look
What
it
a
up.
thing what a thing to be skilled at. Like at
Oh,
some
yeah.
point, a job offer is going to come through. We need a musical comedian, some yo-yo required.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
That blew my mind.
He is apparently
Wow.
the only golfer to ever sink a ball with a yo-yo.
Yeah. He's hit the ball into a hole with a yo-yo.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's amazing.
Really? It's like, but wait, he started playing golf with a yo-yo? Like he's like
It's just a thing he does
teed
as a
up with a
novelty.
yo-yo and like whacked
I
it?
don't think so. It's set at like
Oh.
800 yards. No, I don't.
Like if you played like a whole like
whole-
18 holes.
That's a
you
long
just-
day.
Yeah.
That's a
Like,
very
I don't know
long-
how you drive it.
Yeah, I don't know. Like walk the
400
dog
over
and
par.
like he's just like that's how he putts or something.
I think it's the putting. I think it
Yeah,
was the putting. I haven't seen the footage. It's a
It's like
sort
he
of.
shoots it. I'm sorry. I'm just
No,
trying
no,
to picture.
I'm
it.
happy to have
Like,
you work it
he,
out
like,
in real
he dangles
time.
it and hits it, or does he shoot it at it? Like kind
I
of like
think it's a
with
walk the dog situation. I
That's
think he's got a very
crazy.
powerful dog walk.
That's crazy.
I have a feeling. But yeah, I imagine that show. I hope they were sponsored by somebody who made
So
yo-yos
like
because
Mr. Yo-Yo, like
Whammo.
whatever the company.
Whammo,
is.
yeah,
Whammo
yeah.
made yo-yos?
Yeah, I would-
Whammo?
yeah.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know.
That
Mine-
sounds like
There was a
yo-yo.
yo-yo company just called Yo-Yo.
Yeah, I think.
Really?
I think that's where it came from.
I
Yeah,
guess so.
And their stock must have gone through the roof after that show came out. Watching this, because
Well,
he
they
did
got
two
my
hands,
dollar,
or
yeah.
Did he have like two in each hand?
Oh, yeah.
Doing around
Yeah,
the world
I remember
and
that.
Just insane.
Was this the
stuff.
inspiration
Mind
for
blown.
the Simpsons episode?
Oh, no. Well, maybe.
Maybe.
Wow.
Probably. We wouldn't have near the yo-yo obsession we have if it weren't for the Smothers Brothers. I think that's probably safe to say.
That is nuts.
All right, this feels like a good time to take a little break.
I'm getting my yo-yo.
You pick up the pieces of your brain that
We're
you.
going to take a little break and gather some questions from the audience, and then we will return with the rest of the show.
Comedy Album Book Club is recorded live on the first Thursday of every month at the Social Capital Theatre in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Join us, won't you? We listen to the album at 9:30 p.m., and then we record the panel discussion for the podcast. Tickets are pay what you can, with some proceeds going to Covenant House, Canada's largest agency for at-risk, homeless, and trafficked youth. For more details, please visit us at comedyalbumbookclub.com. I'm Jason DeLine. Thanks for listening.
All right, cool. We are back from the break, and we got some questions from the audience. Thank you. So, Nug, you were talking with audience member Dave about, and he asked you a question about something to do with the Smothers Brothers, correct?
We were just talking about how long I've been listening to them and how how they influenced me. When I first started doing comedy, I was in a duo with Perry Perlmutter, and Perry does stand up now. But Perry and I were a duo, and a lot of our stuff was, we were very conscious of, okay, in this one, you're the dumb one, I'm the smart one. And then we'd flip it. And then we'd try, how can we both be the dumb one? You play with that kind of thing. And they kind of did. There were a few songs later on where Dickie was wrong. Sure, and then the inherently wrong Tom would correct him. And of course, nobody believed him. Right. Which was part of the comedy of that. But when you're in a duo, you really only have each other. When you're doing stand-up, you only have yourself. Right. And when you're in a sketch troupe, you have a few other people. Or an improv troupe, you have a few other people. But when you're in a duo, it's you ride or die with the other person.
Your partners are your foes, and that's how you play everything. I really like the one bit where there was a bit where Dickie is singing a song, and he pauses, and he says to Tom, "What are you doing?" He says, "What do you mean, what am I doing? You always come in there." "Yeah, but I'm not supposed to." "Yeah, but you always do." And so he was mad at him for not screwing up and coming in because that screwed him up. And I love the levels of that concept. Like, who's really to blame here?
There's those two bits that they always did. My favorite was when he was singing a song and he goes, "Take it, Tom," and Tom goes, "No." And then the audience just is like, "But that's what's supposed to," like they lose it. And then there's the other one, Jimmy Crack Corn. Jimmy Crack Corn and I don't care. And Tom starts singing, "Jimmy Crack Corn, I don't care. Jimmy Crack Corn and I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care." And Dick goes, "Those aren't the words." And he goes, "I don't care." It's beautiful.
Classic. When we were in a sketch troupe, Radio Vault, I think for our very first show, the slogan I came up with was brought to you by Jimmy's Crack Corn. You don't like it? We don't care.
We don't care. It's perfect.
It's a great joke. It's built into the
song.
I really like too on the other album. We were talking about it before, the Laredo song.
Oh, Streets of Laredo is one of the best.
So beautifully sung.
They never change it. It's the same song. They just change the lyrics a little bit, and it's just naturally flowing out of it. Somebody says in the lyrics of the song, I see by your outfit that you are a cowboy.
But there's two of them, so then the
he
other
says,
one responds.
"I see by your outfit you are a cowboy too." We see by our outfits that we are both cowboys. If you get an outfit, you can be a cowboy too.
And that's the end. Once the joke's out, they stop. It's a 2-minute
and they
bit,
don't they don't
perfect.
Sing the whole song. They just sing this little bit of it.
And I think that's my favorite thing about it is that once the joke is out, they kill it. Yeah. And we see so many times on Saturday Night Live, I think they just plan to have 8-minute sketches across the board, so they don't have to write too many. And let's come up with a concept, and then come up with variations for that. For
beat
7
the horse
minutes.
to death and not have an ending.
Yeah, but they used to do blackouts on the show, and Kids in the Hall used to do blackouts, and SCTV, and you don't have to have a 7 or 8 minute sketch to be funny. No. You can. I mean, it's more work to write more short sketches, I guess, than a few long ones.
And Tom and Dick have their songs as the fallback, like as their safety net. They have a very well sung, very well played folk song,
right?
But their bits around the intro and in between the verses and stuff, that's where they shine as comedians.
When I listened to this the other day, I had forgotten what amazing musicians they really are. Their harmonies are beautiful. Their finger picking style is absolutely incredible. They're amazing performers that way, and are just great legitimate folk singers.
Well, and that's something you hear commonly in like clown, and is that
which you do, correct?
Yeah, I dabble. Which is to say, there's 12 people in the city who'll pay to see it. So once a year, I might do something.
Part-time blue-collar clown.
Yeah, exactly.
The Sherilyn Johnson story.
But yeah, it is sort of said that like in order to do something funny, you need to do it well first. So you see people doing like acrobatics and really, really broad slapstick, and it's because they can do stage combat, and they know
Right.
how to move physically, and then they can do it funny.
Well, that's why Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin were so popular, right? I mean, they were great at falling down, but then could immediately stand back up from a tumble, and it's amazing to see these.
Basically athletes, yeah.
Yeah,
It is a lot more impressive if you are going to do some sort of like a comedy sketch about dancing. If you're exceptional at the dance,
Yes.
if you've practiced that
Right.
dance, it's even funnier.
Yes.
Because you don't expect the person to be that good at
Just
it.
nail it.
Yeah.
Just
Like,
nail
wow.
it. And everybody goes, whoa! And then the funny stuff on top of it, go, this guy's amazing.
Yep.
So that's
Right.
the Smothers Brothers are very good musicians.
yeah.
And they play other instruments later on, but it's really just the acoustic and a stand-up bass. And that they managed to keep the one song we heard, they keep this awesome pace going
Oh yeah.
throughout,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
just keep it going
Yeah.
as they're bitching at each other.
Yeah.
And somehow it's still the same, like it's just keeping going and keep it going, and they're just riffing with each other.
Right.
But they're good enough to just like, the music is almost secondary, and then when you start to focus on it, you're like, Jesus, they're good.
Yeah. It wouldn't work if it was any less good. Someone, we had a question on Twitter. Someone asked, when they had writers such as Rob Reiner and Steve Martin, how do we feel that the music from the Smothers Brothers influenced them? And I would think it probably influenced Martin greatly.
Huge,
I mean,
yeah.
now he's a Grammy-winning banjo player, and he always had that as part of his act.
But he was more of a magician early on, almost.
Well,
that's
that
where he
too,
started.
yeah.
right?
And he's so funny, yeah, because he started out, Martin, as working at the magic shop at Disneyland in
Disneyland,
California. And so he learned to be a magician, and he loved showmanship,
Yeah.
and he incorporated, magic and music into his acts very early on. He had the banjo very early on, the arrow through the head, the bunny ears,
yeah.
and then bad magic. Like his spot on the Smothers Brothers show was him doing magic tricks, but really unimpressively.
See, you have to do it really well
You
before
do.
you can
Yeah.
do it
It's
funny.
true, yeah.
It takes
it's
a
great
very
point.
good magician or a very good singer to be able to do that badly. Like Jim Carrey came out on Jay Leno a few years ago and sang White Christmas one note off the whole song, which was beautiful because he had
Really?
a boys' choir that was nailing it in the background, and then he's off by one. My friend who's a musician listens to it, he's like, it's either one or a half note. Like and it's enough that you're like, ugh.
It'd be hard to do,
And it's
not-
like you've got to be a very good singer to keep yourself one note off
from
that.
catching back up to them. Yeah,
But Steve Martin being the bad magician, Steve Martin being on that show, the Smothers Brothers have an air of polish.
yes,
They are very polished at everything.
Absolutely.
The sketches, the songs, the banter, even though it seems unrehearsed, everything about it is polished. And when Steve Martin hits the stage doing his bits, his Wild and Crazy, it's polished.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
He wouldn't put it up there if it wasn't.
He wouldn't be able to get away with it either. People can tell real bad from
From fake bad.
from
Yeah.
fake bad, and even if they don't know they can. And I love that whole idea of Steve Martin's character that it was basically a character he played on stage, was just this pompous showman who was terrible at what he did. But the confidence was never shaken. I thought,
the polish is, I think, to answer this Twitter question, is what he may have picked up from the Smothers
Yeah.
Brothers. They
Oh,
wouldn't
yeah.
put
Well,
anything
they were the
on that
ultimate
show.
showman.
Yeah, they wouldn't put anything on TV that wasn't polished.
no, yeah. Oh man, I wish we could go back and watch all that stuff.
It's
so
like
much
the
good
definition of like an entertainer.
Yes,
Yeah.
and they are entertaining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're musicians and they're being funny.
Yeah.
Well,
They're an
to me,
act.
it's like the next. There really wasn't a next era of vaudeville after it died, but they would have been at the forefront of that
Pretty
if it
close,
existed.
yeah.
Like in the
Yeah.
'60s, that's what vaudeville would have been. Would be the Smothers Brothers show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you see, and
Vaudeville, hey.
and there's a little less, value put on polish now. Everyone's.
Yeah.
It's all about getting famous fast and doing the next thing, and no one has.
No one wants to spend the time on doing it right.
Well,
Kids
people
these
also
days.
want to be relatable, and I think some people think relatable means being an average slob. But that's not really what people want to pay to go see. They want to see
No.
somebody who can do something they can't.
Yes.
If you're advertising a show and people pay to see it, they're paying you. They're paying to see the thing you say you're good at.
Yeah.
So you should show them
Right.
you're good at it, and then more people will come to see you do it.
Yeah, I totally understand why a lot of audiences were polarized by people like Andy Kaufman. Like he would stand there and read a book or something for half an hour. Like you're not, and then they yelled, do Latka and other stuff from Taxi. And I get that, but
That's a whole other
That's
conversation.
a whole other. Yeah, we should. I don't know. If
Did he put an album out of reading a book? Because we could do that.
we could cheat and just listen to the soundtrack
Just
to
watch
Taxi.
watch the new documentary.
The
Jim Carrey documentary about filming Man on the Moon.
Oh, is there a new one out?
Oh,
for that?
it is.
Wow.
I highly recommend it. I saw it at TIFF and got to meet Jim Carrey.
Really?
Dream come true.
Oh,
met him.
wow.
He's really evolved into an interesting character
he's
the last few
batshit
years.
crazy.
Yeah,
he's
he's
gone.
nuts.
He's off his. Yeah.
Yeah. He seems to be enjoying himself, but he also looks very sad, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
He seems to like screwing around with the media and stuff and being very subversive, but why?
But anyway, everyone should watch that documentary.
Okay, what's it called? Do you remember?
It's called Jim and Andy.
Jim and Andy.
Beyond the damn it.
That's all right.
I apologize, but it's on Netflix right now. It's very good. Even if you think that like the method actor thing is kind of bullshit, which I do, it is.
I'm listening.
It is a fascinating. It is a fascinating film,
where did
and
you
the
see
footage. What's that?
You saw it at TIFF, you said?
Yeah, I saw it at TIFF, but it's on Netflix. I think it was just released on Netflix.
Very
but,
recent.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, just a couple weeks ago. But
So apparently-
it's very interesting.
Apparently, it's called Jim and Andy: The Great Beyond.
Great
The
Beyond,
story
thank
of Jim Carrey and Andy Kaufman, featuring a very special contractually obligated mention of Tony Clifton.
Yeah.
That's I'm not surprised you remember the whole.
Tony Clifton, aka Bob Zamuta's career. But anyway, that's also another
That's
conversation.
another long story. Okay, we have another question from the audience here. Funny, Nug mentioned Steve Martin wrote for the Smothers Brothers. You can feel some influence there. Who else do you think they've influenced?
Ooh,
Wow.
gosh. Well, any musician comedians, anybody who like when Zach Galifianakis started, he like we said he did a special at the Purple Onion. When he first started doing comedy, he would do it at a piano.
Piano, yeah.
He would, and he's
That's
a
true.
very good piano player.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he would play the piano and do his
Again,
jokes.
has to be very
You
good
have
at
to
it.
be good at it to
Yeah.
then to come up. He was basically Stephen Wright at the piano. He would
Yes,
his one-liners
I remember
were
that.
incredible.
Yeah. Yep.
And he would play beautiful music while he did it.
Yep.
I think any musician comedian worth their salt knows who the Smothers Brothers are and has
Yeah.
a little bit of influence from
Absolutely.
that. Even now, the Doo-Wops, John and Dave, are very accomplished musicians and singers that play characters when they're, John has his and Dave has his, and they're filthy. But this is like, that's what they're in suits when they perform. They present an air of polish. It's that kind of thing that I like. Jerry Seinfeld wears a suit. Like the comedians that still wear suits. It's this missing generation of people that still dress up to ride on a plane.
But Sam Raimi wears a suit directing. It's like a Hitchcock homage.
There's a bit of polish to that. There's
Yeah.
a bit of presentation. I am an act.
They respect the
See,
craft.
it's a respect thing.
Yeah.
Well, Louis C.K. is wearing a suit now, so I don't know.
Finally.
Not wearing a suit instead of a black T-shirt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think that gives him an air of polish.
I don't think so either.
No,
Finally got
It
there.
depends what he's polishing.
true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, hey.
Too soon. Not enough.
I just got
Yeah.
that.
Throw
Hey,
enough
oh.
sexual harassment
Cha-cha.
accusations at someone, they'll put on a suit.
That's right.
Distraction.
You can dress up a pig all you like. It's
Look at me, I'm a real grown-up. They only did really one parody song on the album, which was the Tom Dooley or Tom Crudely, as as Dick originally wrote it, allegedly. That was probably a very early version of parody songs on an album.
I'm a big fan of the Arrogant Worms, and they're not
Right.
doing as much stuff as they used to.
Oh,
but
man,
yeah.
all three of them are goofy. But I think Mike would be the one who would sort of take it too far, and the other two would just sort of glare at him until he came meekly back to the
Right.
microphone and do the song. So I
Yeah.
think there's a little element of that there.
Fair enough.
And Corky and the Juice Pigs.
Chorky and the Juice Pigs, yeah. Maybe you could say Weird Al was influenced by the Smothers Brothers. I mean, we could guess all day.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
say that.
Another very accomplished musician, by the way.
Oh,
Yeah.
And his band. The band never gets enough
Oh
credit.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Oh,
loved it. He played live on. I think it was it last week tonight. He did a bit about America. Like, don't blow us up, North Korea, or something like
Yeah.
that. And that was the first time in a long time I'd seen him do something live. And yeah, the band was amazing. His accordion playing is amazing. His singing is very on point. Yeah, he's quite a talented dude, man.
And got a folk artist who does just straight folk songs, but is hilarious in between on stage. A guy named Vance Gilbert.
Vance is awesome.
Oh my
I'm not familiar.
God! I've been a fan of his for a long time and haven't seen him live in eons. But the way he tells stories, and he's such a character. And then
Canadian
he
guy?
just Virginia, I think.
yes.
But yeah, check him out. He's and just this incredible voice, and makes you want to almost cry, and then fucking hilarious in between.
It's funny that his songs are so sometimes heartbreaking, and
Yeah.
then his banter between yanks the rug out from under that.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And then going back into the sad songs yanks it out from being funny, and you're really thrown off the whole show.
Yeah.
That's fun.
It's a great show.
I dig. We have another question here. You folks spent a lot of the podcast talking about the rest of their career.
Yes.
What do you think makes this album special?
This is the first one.
Yeah.
This is also, I think, anybody who never got a chance, because they did a lot of club shows around California and San Fran and all that. So anybody across the country who couldn't make it out there, who had heard of how good the Smothers Brothers were, this was the chance for the rest of the country to hear the Smothers Brothers. And I think it's a great introduction to what they do.
I think of it as a sort of a proof of concept too. That the fact that it did well sort of opened the doors for them and for other comedians to keep doing silly stuff.
Yeah,
like
this works.
Yeah,
we can. They proved it worked,
It's
and
sold.
so let's not. Now I can do this. Now someone else can do this.
And it's interesting to me that this was only a year after the Bob Newhart album and the Nichols and May album. I mean, that year and a half was a huge time for comedy albums and just this new medium of people putting jokes to to vinyl.
And also a new medium
and
of
selling it.
this is something you can go and see.
Yeah.
This used to be vaudeville. We were saying you used to have to go
Yeah.
see this kind of stuff at vaudeville, and now you could go to a jazz club and see a guy do a stand-up show. You can go to
Yeah.
a small theater and see Nichols and May do their thing, or watch Bob Newhart talk to himself for a while.
Yeah.
It's just such a at the time it was such a new thing,
Right.
and there weren't really comedy clubs, so
Right.
these were the places you had to go.
Well, and it was also very localized. I mean, the idea of the comedy album made them immediately national, if not international, and that's what brought them all that exposure
A
before
different-
television. You
a
know?
different time.
Yeah, so amazing. And these guys, their show, I think it was only on for 2 years before
Yes.
CBS kicked them off the air.
They
for,
wouldn't have made it.
You don't hear it a lot in what we listen to tonight, but they became quite political,
Super subversive,
very
yeah.
subversive.
Well,
Very,
but they were
very
that was
satirical
of the time. You know,
Yeah.
CBS
Yeah.
thought, "Oh, we'll put the nice, safe white boys on TV,"
Yep.
and they didn't
Right.
want to be safe.
Yeah.
They had
Yeah.
a national, soapbox to go on and say whatever they
Yeah.
wanted.
Yeah.
And
That's
and-
crazy. I had no clue that
yeah,
they were even canceled. I only knew them from
they
from the
criticized
80s.
Vietnam
Full out
and-
banned
Yeah.
from CBS.
That's crazy.
They got into racism and Vietnam and the politics.
Yeah, it was
of
the
day.
Vietnam stuff that really.
Yeah.
David
Yeah.
Steinberg did his preacher bit on that.
Oh, yeah.
David
Really?
Steinberg was like, he had a
that
bit
there?
every week where he did a preacher bit, and it was on that show. And so there was religious stuff that he talked
Well,
about.
and you
CBS did not like that.
Right? Yeah.
And Don Navallo, I'm sure, was a part of the religious stuff because he went on to play Father Guido Sarducci
Guido.
and
Right.
SNL.
Yeah. And that's pretty heavy stuff for the time.
Yeah.
This is a few years before Laugh-In,
And wasn't Pete Seeger banned from TV, and they had Pete Seeger on?
Yeah, they had Pete
The
Seeger,
whole thing.
Buffalo Springfield.
Yeah.
They had some the Doors. The Who was on, and they literally blew up their
Yeah,
the
the
drum set at the end. of one
story
of
about
That's
the drum
crazy.
set and the injury.
You hear like the legendary story of the
Yeah.
Who were on TV and they blew. It was on the Smothers Brothers show that
Yeah.
they did it. Like it's this
Yeah.
weird.
But
Well,
I
the
think
story,
people.
the story of that was that they loaded one piece of explosive into the drum kit, and then the stagehand was like, "I'm going to put a second one in there," but the band was also like, "I'm going to put a second one in there." So there were three, and
Yeah.
it didn't
I think
go
I've
well.
seen this Looney Tunes cartoon.
That's when they play the one note on the piano.
Yeah, the teeth are the piano keys.
God, geez.
I love that we're talking about all this stuff about the show because I feel like a lot of people these days think of it as almost like hee-haw, like it's just a very harmless show. But
Yeah,
it was
how-
much more edgy than people give
Yeah,
it credit
how
for.
edgy could the guys from the Shredded Wheat commercial
Exactly,
be?
yeah. These guys in ties.
Yeah, the nice boys in
Acoustic.
suits
Yeah.
talked about Vietnam and racism, got thrown off a national television network
Yeah.
for years, for decades. They weren't allowed on TV.
Well, I feel like that was my impression because I grew up only knowing. Well, first of all, just the yo-yo guy.
Yeah,
I was just like blown away. So
You almost recovered.
yeah, I'm okay. I had a beer. I'm fine. But hearing this, seeing them, you wouldn't think that they would be capable, I guess, of standing up for stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I'm learning so much.
Yeah,
Thank you for
that
having
show won an Emmy, and one of the coolest things in 1968. So Tommy, one of the brothers, the Yo-Yo Man.
Oh, good.
He was not to confuse you, same guy. He was very much part of the writers. He wrote a lot of the material on the show, but he took his name off the ballot for the Emmy because he thought it would be a disservice to the writers in that having his name attached. So he didn't get one. So then 40 years later at the Emmys in 2008, Steve Martin presented Tommy with
he finally got one.
with a 1968 Emmy with his name on it. And you should look it up because Tommy's speech is amazing.
Did he do like crazy yo-yo tricks? Is like
No.
It's like
He was very sincere, and it's a very touching moment. He got a standing ovation, and to wait 40 years for that, I mean, yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Just so but he didn't want to taint it.
Yeah,
because
he
he was
the
one
team,
of the stars.
he was
of
one
the
of the
show.
stars. Yeah.
He was like, "That's not
They
for
wouldn't
me."
take it seriously.
The writers,
man,
pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
But he got his recognition 40 years later, and how appropriate for Steve Martin to be the guy to present it to him.
Yeah.
Full circle.
very nice.
Beautiful. Okay, guys. So I'd like to get your final thoughts on the album, Adam McNamara.
Oh yeah, what do I like? I like this album because, well, one, I feel I've learned a lot.
At least about the true identity
Oh,
of the
man.
Yo-Yo Man.
No, like-
the
like-
voice of Yo.
We all feel
Just
like you
in all
learned a lot.
seriousness,
I know you've
like,
learned a lot.
Yeah, like
That's really cool.
I don't know what was wrong with young me, but like just not realizing that a separate, because he wore a different shirt, and maybe it was just like the costume change. I'm like, well, this is a new person. And
After the show, I'm going to tell you something about Clark Kent that's going to blow your mind.
No, I really liked this because one, I learned a lot. Not to bring up the yo-yo thing, but like, yeah, wow. But also, I feel it's good to listen to the first albums of these comedians just to kind of see where they came from, because, like, you know, Bob Newhart and Smothers Brothers and everybody, like, they're just so established. But when you listen to their earlier stuff, I guess you can kind of see how they grew and where they went from there. And so it's interesting just to experience that.
How great would it be to be just on a fly on the wall before their first show? Like,
Yeah.
How were they deciding to do this? Were they going to be musicians first, but they had they've been working as brothers their whole lives, and did they just have that natural rapport and the natural banter, and it evolved? Or, I'd love to know where that came from.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting too. Like I feel that like in some of the comedy I do, that like I love how they just have the natural banter. And how the comedy comes out of that, and just like you're just talking to somebody, and then say somebody calls you on it, and it's like wait, like and then it kind of like sneaks up on you almost. So like just hearing that and being like wow, like that's something that.
And I love hearing an argument between people who are very familiar with each other. You know, when you see people cut somebody off in the street, screw you, they're just yelling, they're just so antagonistic. But if you know someone and you're comfortable, but you also love them, that you speak in a different way, and I feel like they have that.
And it's like you said, like the brother aspect of it, that they can get away with a lot of it because it's like they're family. Like I don't argue with a stranger like I argue with my brother,
Right.
Because it would be weird. Like I don't know. It's just
there's a different dynamic.
Yeah.
But
no, it was great hearing that. It was the first time I heard it. So,
cool.
Yeah.
How about you, Sherilyn?
I like it because it is so clearly of the time. You know, like a lot of albums, you know, from that era, it is very clearly of a time without being dated. Like it holds up in that. There's nothing about it, you know, other than maybe the subtlety of some of the innuendo, you know, or in place of
stuff that surprised me though. They got away with, I think, bitch, a whore a couple times in a way.
Without saying
whore.
They said horny in reference to horns for Jezebel. Like,
and
61, that's
and
you
can tell from the audience reaction that that's considered, you know, edgy
but
for that time.
Really
but
cursing.
Not cursing, but you know,
Cursing
today obviously, you know, it wouldn't get as much of a reaction.
Sure.
It's more of a, you know, cute pun kind of innuendo. But I like that it holds up. It doesn't feel outdated. It doesn't feel, I mean, even comedy from 20 years ago, sometimes you listen to and you're like, yeah, this just doesn't hold up. But it's still an enjoyable listen.
Yeah.
Even though it wouldn't be made the same way today.
It's interesting because it's interesting that it doesn't feel dated, but it feels quaint in a way.
Yes, yeah.
And they're smart not to talk about anything timely, but they do talk about history, but it's sort of made up history.
Right.
The marching to Pretoria, I love the line in that where he says all marching songs are in foreign countries, and what a great little comment about war that is, right? And I think that was a war in Africa that took place in the early 1900s or something like that. So that was a folk song or a marching song from then. So that was, it's far enough back that they can look back on it, so it doesn't feel like a thing of the day. The only thing that I think might suffer these days is people probably aren't as familiar with the song Tom Dooley as they would have been in '61.
Yeah.
It was a pretty massive hit at the time.
Yeah. And the audience, you can hear in the album, just loved that parody. I think it probably on the radio once an hour at least back then. So, yeah, that's interesting. How about you, Nug? This was your album, man.
It's my pick. I am very much in favor of, if you are in the comedy business, do your homework.
Yeah.
Know your history. Know where it came from. If you're a comedian, listen to the old comedians. If you're an improviser, listen to the sketch. Listen to the old albums. And I think this is one of the things that you should listen to, especially if you're a musical comedian, but also if you're in any kind of combo act. If you're in a 3-person, 4-person, or a duo or whatever, this is something to listen to. These guys were the best at it. This was where it started, and where it took them was being one of the edgiest acts on television ever. Even though they're the white bread boys, and they just got banned from television, and you go, these guys? And then when you go into it and start watching their show, you're like, oh my God. And, Laugh-In owes everything to the Smothers brothers.
Absolutely.
And then Laugh-In got to go further because the executives were okay with it. But the Smothers brothers are very important in comedy history, and this is the beginning of them. And, podcasts like this where you are bringing back the old albums and getting people to listen to them, it's all like this is something everyone should know.
Agreed.
These are the kind of things like Nichols and May and Bob Newhart and Old Carlin and even Jonathan Winters put out albums that were brilliant. And it's like everybody should be listening to these. Everybody should know this. When I first started doing comedy, I was stunned that no one else had the same references to Old Carlin's Toledo Window Box album. I'm like, how do you guys not know that?
Yeah.
Like, this is bananas to me. I was brought up with this stuff, and now I'm in this business, and I have my references. I also, just to make sure you're not doing the same shit that somebody else did.
Well, this is it. Yeah, it's so disheartening when you hear someone do a bit where
you have to go up and put a hand on the shoulder and go, hey.
A legend did this perfectly before you were born.
I tell this story a lot where I was sitting one day, I was in a sketch troupe with some guys, and I was like, oh, what would be great if, and I started writing a sketch. I started with the premise, and then this sketch just comes pouring out of me. And I'm like, oh, God, this was so fun. So convoluted, the comedy, blah, blah, blah. And then I go, this is a Python sketch. I am writing a Monty Python sketch. And then I went to I had the scripts in a book, and I went, this is almost word for word this guy. I just thought it was what a fun concept. And I was rewriting an old Python sketch. And I would not have known that. And then I would have gone up on stage and somebody went, you're ripping off Monty Python. What are you doing? Oh, man. So knowing your history allows you to make your own stuff.
But also, it can be a detriment if you know too much stuff. It can seep into your subconscious. Like with George Harrison got sued for "My Sweet Lord," which is basically "He's So Fine," and he lost. And he just said, fair enough. He was very cordial about it. It got in my head. I didn't even think about it.
What's that? Sam Smith ripped off Tom Petty. Is that the most recent one? Yeah. That Stay With Me by Sam Smith is just I Won't Back Down by Tom Petty.
Right. Yeah.
And it's the same song, and Tom Petty went, hey, and so Sam Smith owed him a ton of money.
Yeah.
That's with like Ghostbusters, isn't it?
I Want a New Drug? I Want a New Drug.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I like Ghostbusters better, but I would say that's the way.
You know what I love about that story is that Huey Lewis sued I can't think of his name now.
Ray Parker Jr.
Thank you.
Dan Aykroyd.
Dan Aykroyd.
I didn't do it.
And he won. But part of the deal was that Huey Lewis would never reveal how much money he made.
Oh, really?
But then like 30 years later, like 10 years ago or something, in an interview, Huey Lewis just offhandedly said, yeah, we made however many $1 million. And so
Oh, man.
he then had to pay Ray Parker Jr. a whole bunch of money back because that breached the contract. So it was all a wash. It was all for nothing.
Huey!
So ridiculous.
You had one job, Huey. Come on.
I bet the lawyers were happy though.
I
they
bet
absolutely
they got
were.
their fees, absolutely.
Just waiting for it. It's like, come on.
But yeah, this is history class, so everybody, I'm going to tell everybody to listen to this podcast.
I
Because
appreciate
this is history
that.
class.
Well,
You should know.
And that's the whole idea of doing this thing. We wanted to get people who like this stuff to talk about it, and people who didn't know about it to get to hear it and understand why it's important. So yeah, thanks for being here, guys.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Yeah.
Thanks to Nug Nargang, who you can find, as I said before, the Illusionoid. And what's your Twitter, sir?
At Nug Nargang, Nahrgang.
Right on. Sherilyn Johnson, you can find her.
Twitter, Third Beat.
Perfect. And Adam McNamara, do you want Twitter, YouTube? What's your deal?
Yeah, I'm bad with technology, so I wrote down this stuff. So Twitter is at GamesRocks1. Facebook is Games on the Rocks.
It was such a nice, smooth ending.
Oh yeah, Instagram is Games on the Rocks 1. YouTube, because there's something already called Games on the Rocks. But it's about board games and they don't drink, so I don't know why it's called Games on the Rocks. So on YouTube, we're Games on the Rocks the show.
Okay. Even though the other Games of Rocks is a show.
Is a show.
Look.
All right, folks. Thanks so much to my guests. Thanks for my audience for coming. And remember, we're here at the Social Capital Theater at Broadview and Danforth the first Thursday of every month. Next month, we'll be here December 7th for the big Christmas show.
Yay!
Not doing a Christmas album or anything, but comedian Jordan Kennedy will be my featured guest, and he has chosen Adam Sandler's They're All Gonna Laugh at You. So please come back and join us. It's pay what you can, with some proceeds going to Covenant House. And please, if you want to download the podcast, you can find that on your podcast listening app, or you can go straight to comedyalbumbookclub.com and find it there. Thanks so much. I'm Jason DeLine. This has been Comedy Album Book Club.
You know how to book flights and hotels. All you're missing is a tool to plan the travel experiences you'll have once you arrive. That's why you need Viator. Book guided tours, activities, excursions, and more in one place to make your trip truly unforgettable. Viator has over 300,000 travel experiences to choose from. Everything from simple tours to extreme adventures and all the niche, interesting stuff in between. So you can plan something that everyone you're traveling with will enjoy. Real traveler reviews give the inside scoop from people who've already been on the experiences you're considering. So you can plan with confidence. Free cancellation helps you plan for the unexpected. And 24/7 customer support means you can travel worry-free. Download the Viator app now and use code Viator10 for 10% off your first booking in the app. Find travel experiences for you. Do more with Viator.
When you visit Arizona, time is measured in moments, not minutes. Like the moment your work stress disappears as you kayak through the canyons. Or the moment you discover the life-changing effects of prickly pear chocolate. But nothing beats the moment you see the Grand Canyon for the very first time. Visit a new state of mind. Learn more at hereyouareaz.com.